Hello, welcome to Vegas Nation. I'm Bryan Salmond, and folks, we are now less than 24 hours away from the Raiders' first preseason game of the 2018-19 season. Now, there's a renewed sense of energy surrounding the team with the addition of head coach Jon Gruden, and why not? So, let's preview the game. On Skype, we have Raiders beat writer Michael Gehlken, who has been in Napa for all of training camp and is now back at his home in Alameda. And you saw the joint practices with the Lions. So I guess with that being said, what do the Raiders need to improve upon from the joint practices leading up to this first preseason game, Michael?
There's a lot that the Raiders need to clean up. I think you don't want to necessarily read too much into two joint practices, but you saw some pre-snap penalties. That's something Jon Gruden wants to really refine. But ultimately, I think they just want to see this team, how it performs in a game setting. You look at undrafted rookie running back Chris Warren. He stood out when he lowered his shoulder and bowled through Jared Davis, a standout linebacker for the Detroit Lions, but it wasn't really full contact. So how does he look when everyone else is being physical around him? That's just one example, but I think overall the Raiders coaches just want to see how players on offense, defense, and special teams show up with the lights on at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum.
All right. Now, you've been looking at all the position battles from the kicking game to the tackle position to the defensive backfield. I guess if you're talking to Raider Nation right now, what positions are you going to be looking at during this first preseason game?
I think wide receiver is interesting. We look at, obviously, the Raiders are going to go into the season with Amari Cooper and Jordy Nelson. Those are two guys who probably I wouldn't think would play at all on Friday. But when you start going past that, Ryan Switzer, he seems like a roster lock as a punt returner / slot wide receiver. Seth Roberts, we probably won't see much of him this game, although he's competing for a spot, dealing with what Jon Gruden called soreness. But you move past that, Marcel Aitman, a 7th-round pick, Saeed Blacknell, Keon Hatcher, Dwayne Harris, Johnny Holton. These are guys that need to stand out, not only on offense, but on special teams. And really, for Johnny Holton and Dwayne Harris, that's particularly important. Marcel Aitman, the 7th-round pick who's got size. The Raiders really like that size. But if he's not productive in the preseason, they might feel comfortable possibly waiving him, sneaking him through that waiver system, and then sign him to their 10-man practice squad on September 2nd. So how a guy like that performs will dictate, are the Raiders going to keep 6 wide receivers? Could they even keep 7? 7 is almost impossible to believe, but they really need to figure out how many they're going to keep and who shines here in the preseason.
Wow, that's a lot of wide receivers. With that being said, how do you think Martavis Bryant has done? Has Jon Gruden been happy with him, and are they looking forward to seeing him play, obviously, in the preseason as well?
I am not sure how much we will see Martavis Bryant. They really know where he is and, more importantly, where he isn't at this point. They know he can execute what part of the playbook that he knows, but they've seen on the practice field his limitation to play multiple positions the way the Raiders really want him to. Got a great look at that speed that he offers, that big play element on Wednesday's practice. We had a couple long touchdowns while working with Connor Cook and the second-team offense. The Raiders essentially know what Martavis Bryant is and what he isn't. I guess if you're going to see him run past a bunch of second, third teamers for the Detroit Lions, and he has this huge game, what does that really change? At the end of the day, how Martavis Bryant creates a positive impression on the Raiders is what he does throughout the week surrounding games and surrounding practices.
Okay, now with that being said, Gruden talked a lot about how the joint practices were great for his veteran players to kind of get them somewhat real on the game, on the field action. Now, with that being said, do you believe that guys like Derek Carr and maybe Amari Cooper, any of the starters, you think you'll see any of those players in this first preseason game?
I have a hard time seeing Gruden putting those guys out there, because when you put players in these game situations that an exhibition provides, it's because you want to see them respond to, say, a 2-minute drill or third down or red zone or these types of situations. Well, the Raiders have already seen how Derek Carr and company perform against the Lions because they had the joint practices Tuesday and Wednesday. And the real beauty there is that they were able to get that look of their offense while Derek Carr is wearing a red "Don't Hit Me" jersey. So they didn't have to worry about losing their $125 million quarterback in August. That in mind, I think we see a lot of Connor Cook. We see a lot of E.J. Manuel. Raiders really trying to get a sense of some of these bottom-end guys who are fighting for roster spots. Undrafted rookie linebacker Jason Kabinda, an example of who to watch. Those are more of what we're talking about when it comes to what the Raiders are looking for Friday night.
I like that. The red don't hit me jersey.
Yeah.
I like that. Now, obviously the game is going to be played in Oakland and Alameda. So Jon Gruden, his first time on the sidelines with the Raiders for his second time. I guess what kind of reception are you thinking that he may get, somewhat similar to maybe what Marshawn Lynch got last year during the preseason?
I expect Jon Gruden to embrace the black hole and the black hole to embrace him right back. It's been a while. It's kind of like seeing an old friend. The last time Jon Gruden was on a Raiders sideline or a Raiders, their stadium on a sideline during a game was way back on September 26, 2004, when he was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach. If you want to go back to when the last time Jon Gruden as the Raiders head coach was there at the Coliseum, January 12, 2002, a playoff win against the Jets. Of course, most coaches don't get traded or have their last game be a playoff win, last home game be a playoff win. Raiders ended up trading Jon Gruden to Tampa Bay after the Tuck-Rule game, and here we are about a decade and 6 years later, and finally Jon Gruden's getting his chance to coach at the Coliseum once more.
I appreciate you coming on today. Good job, my man.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, folks. Well, I'd like to thank Michael again in Alameda for joining us for our Vegas Nation preseason preview. Now, a reminder to all of you Raider fans, Raider Nation, Vegas Nation, if you want that news, go to reviewjournal.com or on our Vegas Nation app. Also, listen to our weekly Vegas Nation podcast. That's available on iTunes as well. Plus, all of our Raiders video reports can be found on Roku television and now on Amazon Fire Stick. That's right. You can see Michael while you're sitting on your couch and eating a pizza. So for Michael Gehlken in Alameda, I'm Bryan Salmond for Vegas Nation, our preseason preview. We'll see you next time.